Coach Jay here with John Azar-Dickens, and we were actually having a conversation last week that we did not film, and we decided to not really talk about it again, and it was starting to get a nice little back and forth. So we're just going to pick up with that conversation, and here's how it started.
Well, first, what's the topic?
Yeah, I'll tell the topic. Yeah, so we had this conversation about food.
Right.
And my side, and not that we totally disagreed, but I'm really trying to get away from packaged foods and anything that's not natural, and that I can't, basically pick out of the ground, or that doesn't have to be prepackaged, as fresh as possible. And you had a really interesting comments.
Well, I don't remember what my comment was, but to me, I mean, that's great if you want to live in the real world.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. I mean, you work all day, and for law enforcement, you're working 10, 12-hour shifts. You're in a car. You don't have time to eat.
How can you do that?
Stop and pick something out of the ground? I mean, you can only be so clean.
But I don't
disagree with that being a good choice.
Thing. But in reality, here was my point.
Okay.
Is if I make one meal that is, let's say I had salmon, asparagus, rice, and some other, sweet potato, whatever it is, pretty close to, all natural food.
Right.
And I just pack that up for my lunch the next day.
Sure.
And then I've got one, so that's 2 meals. Now I've got one more to deal with. And for me, that's breakfast. Understanding law enforcement, you're going to be all over the place. But isn't that a reality? Couldn't you try to do that?
Oh, of course. I'm not saying you can't plan and you shouldn't plan. I mean, I think that's, we in our app, we write about, there's a lot of different research. For example, one is when you make homemade meals and you cook at home, those folks don't gain weight as much as people who don't. It's sort of self-explanatory, but so that home cooking is a better thing to do. Packing and planning is much better for weight management than just impulsively, because what happens to a lot of people is they don't plan ahead, they get hungry, and they grab whatever's close. Sometimes they'll use, especially in law enforcement, they'll use a soda or some kind of candy or something for a kick. If they had already packed stuff, they'd have food ready that's healthy and would provide.
Now, what about the challenge? I'm thinking about you guys' challenge of what about heating it up?
Now I've seen some guys go into convenience stores and put them in microwaves and do that when they have time.
So that's an option.
A lot of it depends on the night or the day or what's going on, how busy you are. But I've seen people do it. It's an option. But it comes down to planning. On the other side of the argument is, why not just use a Quest bar or a Cliff bar? Pretty good balance of carbs, protein, and fat. Easy access. You can eat it in 30 seconds.
My reply to that is how many Cliff bars am I going to have to eat?
I'm not saying every...
to get full.
Well, I'm not saying... Well, we're talking about snacks, right?
Okay.
If you're talking about full meals, then that's a different story.
Okay.
But if we look at what's the best thing to do, should you delay food and calorie intake?
Definitely not. So I'm definitely on board there. Like, if push comes to shove, there's no way I'm starving myself.
So let's say I'm also working second shift, and I go in at 3 o'clock, and we're just getting slammed, and it's not, regular dinner hours, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Still can't take a dinner.
You got to eat.
Didn't pack. Maybe I should have planned, but didn't.
You got to eat.
Am I better off waiting until 12 or 1 in the morning to eat, or would I be better off eating a bar?
You'd be better off eating just about anything.
Well,
to
not
a
a Coke
degree,
and Cheetos.
If you're going to delay that long, you've got to eat something, right? Or you're not going to perform your job well.
Correct. But to me, it'd be better.
But so you're talking about a minor. So I'm talking about planning a whole lot, and then there's a second level of planning that's like emergency planning, and then there's the third level where you didn't plan at all, and you're going to eat whatever.
And you don't think about it; you just impulsively go get whatever. Right.
So if you had stocked with you at all times, 3 different types of bars and some nuts, that's a great option. Or dried fruit or something like that for your snacks.
But I'm talking for the best bang for your buck, for balance. If you eat almonds, that's great. You can get super high fat. And especially you can maybe get 10 to get a decent fat level. Once you go above that, you're starting to get real high. There's some protein there. But if you want a nice balance, one of those bars is already done for you.
Sure.
So I'm just saying, for balance
Push comes
sake
to shove.
and easy
Yeah.
access, bars work great.
Yeah.
In a perfect world where I'm going to go, I know people who go and shop on Sunday. They do all their cooking for the week on Sunday, and they just basically
That's hard to
portion
do.
it out. It is
Yeah.
hard to do.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
But I mean, it can be done, and planning is obviously, if we're looking at what's most ideal, it would be planning ahead, spacing everything out, having a whole meal plan. But, how realistic is that for a lot of people?
If you get in the routine and it becomes a habit, I think it's very realistic.
I don't disagree with that.
Very realistic. But it is hard to get in that routine, and you do have to do a lot of planning. Once the planning's done, it's actually easier than we'll overcook on dinner every night, and then I'll package lunch based on what we had for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically have my lunch and dinner the previous night's dinner and lunch are the same.
Right.
And then I only have breakfast to deal with.
Well, I'm just thinking about...
But snacks, I totally agree, in between the day. And then also, if you're not able to do that level of planning, then yeah, definitely I think a good bar or a balanced meal, I would totally agree with you on that.
We just don't... My thing is, let's not get on these kicks. I'm going to be all clean.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be no wrappers. I'm going to eat only what God and the earth gives me. That's nice.
Well,
but that is not going to be realistic.
Well, what happens with that is if you say I'm not going to eat certain things, then you start limiting what you can eat, and eventually you're going to give up.
Right.
Because eventually you'll be able to eat nothing.
Right. Well, especially in the world of
fads and diets.
In the world of law enforcement, where it's 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, you don't have anywhere to go other than fast food, especially in a smaller city. And so, so what we've been trying to encourage is to think about, okay, if I have to eat at McDonald's or I have to eat at Wendy's, what are my best options? And we've written some articles on what to buy at a convenience store, what to buy at a Wendy's, what to buy at a Chick-fil-A.
Okay, so I have one. This is a great conversation. I have one rebuttal to that.
Okay.
Is what about grocery stores?
Well, they're closed.
A lot of them are open 24 hours.
Well, you might find we have in this city we have one.
Walmart, and both Walmarts.
I guess I don't consider Walmart a grocery store, but okay.
Yeah, but you can still go in there and buy an apple, a banana. You can get something that has a good protein bar in it. You could they have pre-made side salads.
Well, that's true.
Whatnot. I'm just saying there are other options out there
other
in the middle of the night other than a convenience store and Wendy's.
True.
I've done that tons of times, not in the middle of the night, but even for lunch. We've got Cookout Burger, Wendy's, Pizza Hut, Honey Baked Ham right down the street. And I've gone to Publix or Walmart. And I've spent the same amount of money and just bought my lunch.
Well,
so I like the idea of options.
Right.
And I totally get it. The convenience store and Wendy's, if you're pushed for time, that may be it. And finding those, you can sift through the convenience store and find good options.
Sure. Oh, yeah. And like I said, we've written about it.
Yeah.
I think the trick, if there was a trick, is balance. Not to say I'm going to do only this,
right.
or do only that, or I'm going to, only natural and only stuff that comes out of a garden.
But the focus should be seeking after that stuff, and then filling in the gaps when you can't find it. So you're not committed to only something, but you're looking for the best option, and when you can't find it, you find the next best option.
Well, we've always pushed mindful eating, meaning just being aware of what you're eating.
Mm-hmm.
If you overeat in some way because you have to, then just make adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you run a little extra the next day, you exercise a little harder, you reduce calories, just balance.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about balance. Not swinging from, like you talked about, fad diets, where, I'm only going to eat low carb, I'm only going to eat high protein.
That never works.
It doesn't work because you can't do it.
It doesn't work at all.
And if you love something, you have to ask yourself, what are the absolute I have to haves?
Yeah.
If you're a Dr. Pepper person, and you have to have Dr. Pepper, how can you make adjustments in other places?
How can you put it in an area in your nutrition plan
where it works?
That doesn't mean you're having Dr. Pepper every meal?
Right.
Exactly.
Or that it's sending your calories skyrocketing high.
Right.
So it's a balance thing. If you got to have that, or you got to have candy, or you got to have whatever, just try to find ways to integrate.
So what's your thing that you have to have
I love bread, which I'm not on any kind of rigid no bread anything like that. But I track macros, so it's how many calories. I mean, how much protein, how much fat, how much carbs in a day, and I sort of have an allowance, and I pull from that allowance throughout the day. And so some days I have to kind of cut back a little bit. Other days I need to add in more. It just depends. But bread is something that I absolutely love, and it's kind of a have-to for me.
Yeah, mine's ice cream. I've got to have ice cream a couple times a week. But what I do is I try to not have the entire pint.
Well, of course.
Try to split it with
Right.
Carmen, my wife, or try to do it one day, not the next day. And the other tip that I like to do is desserts I never buy and save them.
So how do you do that? Right?
So if I'm going to have a dessert, we go get it that day. And then we have the ice cream that day.
You eat that entire thing that day?
Well, we do the little pints.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then split
Same.
one. So we're not buying a gallon or a quart of ice cream to eat all and have it every day and then have to not eat it. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So
Well, and I mean, if you're not, and we've said this on the app and written about this, if you're not big into fitness and all you're interested in is maintaining your weight, it's really easy to do. Just trying to maintain a balance. Like we said, if you overeat too much, make some adjustments, exercise regularly, watch the scale. If you see the scale going up, cut calories a little bit. If you see the scale going down, build, it's that simple. It doesn't have to be some complicated diet.
Yeah.
Now, if you do the kind of exercise we do, we run ridiculous amounts of miles and things, or you run a CrossFit or whatever, then you're going to have to be a little more, and you might want to be a little more rigid about your intake. You're going to need to eat a certain way to have the energy and to drive performance.
and you're also going to have to shop properly too,
yeah,
because you can't buy a bunch of crap and then expect
Sure.
yourself not to eat it.
or to expect your body to produce and perform the way you want it to when you're running on crap.
Yeah, exactly.
So, just some things to think about and consider when you're thinking about food and how to live in a world where there's all kinds of food choices and kind of what's most healthy. And we'll continue our debate
good
about bars
That's
versus
a good
eating
one.
only things out of the dirt
Yeah.
later on. So, thanks for watching.